Hello, everybody. It's Carl Rodriguez from Joining the Dots, the Startups Network again, and I'm delighted and really looking forward to chatting and introducing you to Tom Sichel from SageCity, one of the co-founders there who I've been collaborating with for some time now. Um, Tom, welcome. I've got a lot of good things to say about you, but I want you to kind of introduce yourself and, very much a thought leader in the capabilities of blockchain. And I often think about, how some of the new wave of companies are disrupting the disruptors. And I definitely position you as one of those people. But how are you doing today, first of all?
Yeah, going fine. And thanks for having me on here.
Yeah, you're welcome. So Tom, just give us all a bit of a background to, the things that get you up in the morning and fire you up and, on a personal level and also within SageCity and what you're up to there.
Yeah, you're right. Gosh, what fires me up in the morning? I guess for me, it's always been about. I'm one of those people that when I see something not quite working in the world, um, you know, I tend to kind of get very frustrated about it, and then realize, oh, well, I better do something about it. However, we all know there's too many problems out there for us to individually solve. So I guess in recent time, I've found myself in this blockchain space, and it's definitely aligned very much with some of my feelings and thoughts around where the future is going.
Okay, great. And I think, we're going to tease into some of that in terms of the future. And I know, one of the things you're heavily involved with, which blockchain can help with, is disrupting the financial system or the financial world. So definitely, I think when you're saying about problems that you're aware of, we're all aware that there are things about finance that either are a bit clunky, a bit slow, don't really work, or even to the point of it's not really being very fair as well. So do you want to just walk through the doorway of some of the things that you're up to in terms of disrupting fintech or finance?
Yeah, totally. Well, I guess I'll start off by talking a little bit about SageCity, the company that me and Adam had started 2 years back. And then I'll talk a little bit on the product Novadex that we've been recently putting out there.
Yeah.
So SageCity was, started 2 years ago. Me and Adam, a couple of guys, a few pens and a whiteboard. And we'd been bouncing a lot of ideas back around, where is the future of I guess living in general, and I mean that in the sense that what is this new kind of world we're going to find ourselves in as more and more innovations come out, as more and more of this kind of world we find ourselves in changes. I think in recent times people have found themselves having to engage more with the virtual space, engaging with relationships on a digital level. It's things like this where technology is there to open up avenues that weren't there before. And me and Adam, we're both millennials. We're born kind of early, before the 2000s, so 1996 for myself. I didn't know a time before computers, right? I've been around that since day one. And that's changed my life. That's been part of my life since the start. And I can only see technologies like this continuing as time goes in changing the way things are done. So SageCity is very much about supporting that. It's about finding other people who are in that mindset of actually, we can change things. Actually, there are problems that we could solve. And we're going to use the latest tech, latest cutting edge ideas to make it happen. So that started 2 years back with SageCity. We're now a team of 15. We've been working one-to-one with these innovative companies, mostly early stage to medium-sized companies, in bringing blockchain technology and delivering real solutions that solve real life problems.
Awesome. Okay. Do you want to just give us a little bit of some examples of that? You don't have to name companies necessarily, but some examples of that, because I know also you're going to touch on Novadex, which is kind of quite a big solution to some of these big problems as well. But maybe just give us a bit of a sense of some of the classic kind of ways that you've been using blockchain so far.
Yeah, 100%. So the first area we found ourselves moving toward was definitely in the payment space. So, you know, one client we were working with, they were paying £2 per month per user to Stripe Connect. So for those of you who don't know what that tool is, it's basically a system that allows for buyers and sellers to meet on a marketplace and essentially keeps track of their user balances and transactions between them. It's a very widely used tool and a very expensive tool also. So with this client, you know, we circumvented that cost entirely. So that meant they were no longer having to pay £2 per month per user. So just to put that in perspective, if you've got 10,000 users, that's £20,000 per month just to keep track of your financial payments. So this is just one example among a few others of these custom builds that we've been working on alongside these kind of early stage pioneering companies.
Brilliant. And tell me a bit more about Novadex, because I think you know, I've been doing some investing you know, over the years in some of these you know, crowdfunding platforms, and I know you've not just in that realm, but the whole kind of space of, you know, how investors work with other investors or startups, and that whole kind of ecosystem. You've been very much kind of looking at that and coming up with some innovative solutions.
Yeah, so I guess so to talk a bit about Novadex, I'm going to give a bit of a wider context on what this thing is. So with SageCity, you know, the grand vision is to work towards what we call zero cost living. It's a bold idea, but in essence, what it means is we're going to be living in a world where all of our basic needs are provided for at zero cost. So food, water, electricity, you know, shelter, all these kinds of things. We fundamentally believe that the innovation will carry us to that point, and I hope it will happen within my lifetime. So with that said, that's the end vision for SageCity. There are a few phases or arcs that we'll be going under in order to move more toward that world. The first one is around economics. And we break economics down into two sections. So there is the transactions of goods and services, so payments. And this is when we built our first tool within that space, allowing for zero cost payments and that sort of thing. We're now moving into the second phase of economics, and this is around financial assets. So zero cost transaction of financial assets, being able to trade without friction on a global level instantly. And very much, you know, Novadex as a product is about delivering that. And of course, because we do believe in, you know, these innovators and pioneers, we're designing the product to work specifically with them. So in essence, Novadex allows for early stage companies to tokenize their shares and then essentially list them on the exchange and have investors buy and sell them in the primary and secondary market anytime they like, instantly, and without any cost whatsoever. So this was primarily, or this is going to primarily address the issue around liquidity. And by that, I mean cash that's locked into these shares that can't be unlocked. So in the last kind of wave of unicorns we had, there's according to PitchBook, about $800 billion of locked up assets. So investors there are millionaires on paper, unable to unlock that value. And our belief is that we can unlock, you know, some of this value by essentially doing what we call merging capital. And I'll talk a little bit on what that means exactly. So given that Novadex is a decentralized blockchain-based exchange, it means that we can do on-off ramps to cryptocurrencies and fiat currencies. Now, in the crypto space, there's a lot of, let's say, volume, so lots of trading going on. the last time I checked and done the stats on this, about 2.2 trillion on average per month is transacted within cryptocurrencies in general. That's a really, really big liquid market. And right now, what we're trying to do is build the bridge between cryptocurrencies and stocks and shares within early stage companies. And this will then increase the volume, the amount of trading and activity that can happen. And this would then allow for those investors that are parked on their highly valuable assets and looking to unlock that into either fiat or crypto. They're going to be able to do that by kind of using our on-off ramps to the crypto space. But it doesn't stop there. So merging capital goes beyond just cryptocurrencies. It's also going to be looking at venture philanthropy, social impact, some of the other capital markets that are out there who are trying to support these early stage pioneering projects. So it goes above and beyond just for-profit companies. It's going to the point of saying, hey, actually, companies in general, pioneering projects, innovators in general, they're all trying to solve really hard problems for society. And there needs to be a capital market that can bring all the kinds of investors that are looking to be part of that journey in building that future, but at the same time, reduce their risks and increase their returns. So this is kind of some of the core components with Novadex and where it's going.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, it is a big shift, but I can see how, like you were saying earlier, there's some practical steps along the way. I mean, I know for myself as an investor, you sometimes you have to wait like so many years before another milestone will happen, like an acquisition or an IPO or so on. And meanwhile, the world just seems to be operating at a much faster pace. And so for people to have to wait that long before they can actually unlock some evident value, because evidently that company is progressing and succeeding and growing, and there are people who are watching it and want to get in on it who maybe didn't at the earlier stage. So why it almost feels, as we're verbalizing it now, like that already feels obsolete, that you shouldn't be able to have some system which adapts in more real-time situations. And obviously that's a thing, what people are finding with things like, blockchain and unlocking all of these different things. I suppose it's also like, building these infrastructures that potentially can, I know you're doing this on a global level as well, can be an infrastructure that can be used in different jurisdictions who can sometimes, I mean, we know about, working in different countries. Some of them can jump some of the steps that we've had to go through in the UK or US and so on. So it sounds very exciting from that point of view. I know we could, maybe one day we'll do a longer one, a longer session, but I want to maybe just sort of draw this in a bit now, just to sort of ask you, what do you find as you're building something like this? What are the topics where you feel, you know what, I really wish people understood X? What would you say is some key thing that you hope people could really receive from you?
So I think one angle to this is understanding the amount of energy that goes into actually building a company for the founder. So it's immensely difficult and time consuming, and you throw your whole life into building this thing. And I think sometimes investors don't realize that, and they kind of, and rightly so, the incentives are built to be like this, but they're looking for that kind of, X return on the investment. But what this has led to in recent time is there's a lot of pressure on various founders to exit the company or do an IPO, or when's your next fundraising round so I can get out of this, out of the cap table and liquidate. So this can sometimes come up against, where the founder's vision is, but also it's very short term in thinking. And, going forward, I think I wish people understood how, if some of the most hardest problems that we go on to face as a society, if they're going to be overcome, if they're going to be solved, we're going to need longer term thinking. And that means building capital markets that can service that. Now, I'm not saying that means forgo all of your returns on your investments, and it's all about just non-profit. It's not that. It's about building a system that can fulfill the needs of all the stakeholders involved as they go forward on that journey of trying to crack the hard problem. And so, yeah, I wish investors understood the challenges that founders go through. I wish there was a broader view on, actually, yeah, we're on a mission, we're on a vision together to build something that's is of worth that we can be proud of in the end.
Yeah, awesome. And I think as you were talking, it struck me that there is this sort of classic new paradigm win-win-win situation, because I think the investors, they will I think some investors, we don't want to be too harsh on many of them, because I know when I look at a lot of investor websites, they are they talk anyway about really wanting to go on that journey with startups and support with their knowledge and networks and so on. But yeah, I think that ability to actually give them their returns whilst actually freeing things up to be more flexible, as well as giving the startups that ability to not be so pressurized in a very rigid. I think that's what we're getting at today as well, isn't it? Is there's a rigid way that things have been done, and there's a much more freed up, to use your word, liquidity again. It's a much more flowing way of actually having more and more interactions between a market who prizes value, when people like the great founders are creating things of value, and how you can actually get that to be many more points of interaction, transaction value, and then growth as a result. So it's exciting, and you're really, this is just give a bit of a blatant plug to Join the Dots as well. This is exactly the kind of community that we got where we we sort of, I say, it's building new empowered digital earth, where we're also got that balance between fintech, finance. Is it really balanced? Would anyone say it's balanced at the moment? I don't know. I think some of what you're talking about, I think maybe starts to rectify some of those issues whilst actually being more useful, and that's the joy of, I think, any kind of blockchain newbies here listening in. I'd hope that's really one of the aims I had for this video, is just to give you a platform to start to show people how these things can be applied to actually solve some problems and make the old ways of doing things look a bit silly.
And to give some sort of specifics on the kinds of features that the product will have to try and enable this kind of long-term, lower risk environment. One of them is introducing, the secondary market for the investors. So they're going to be able to buy and sell anytime, instantly, from various companies, and we're going to be bringing in liquidity from what I said earlier, with the merging capital, the first being cryptocurrencies, but then some of the other investor types bringing their capital in and engaging more activity and volume on the platform. So the secondary market piece is one in there. Another is, the very fact that it's going to be super simple and easy to build and diversify yourself across a portfolio of entrepreneurs and startups. Some people, they like to bet the farm on one thing, and other people, they'll have several kind of things that they're looking at, they're diversifying. So it's very much about having tools out there that are going to cater to those kinds of investors who either want to focus in on one thing or want to diversify. So those are kind of two domains to sort of keep in mind in terms of actual features we're bringing in. I think another angle to bring in there is more on the sort of startup side as well. So for us, to begin with, it's going to be trying to build an ethos around what are some of the major problems that need to be kind of solved, and what kinds of industries, companies, or non-profit projects are like in that space, and how do we give them kind of a room to easily kind of voice out where they're going, what they're doing, so that others can easily find them and then begin kind of investing and engaging. So that's kind of the other angle there is actually bringing in the deal flow for the investors, packaging it up in a way that it can easily be kind of understood, and then hopefully lead to that investment.
Brilliant. All right, Tom, look, if people want to get in touch with you, I think we'll leave certainly your details underneath the video, and the website link for SageCity.
Oh, www.sagecity.io, and I'll link that to you guys.
Okay, great. And yeah, look forward to continuing the journey with you, and thanks for being a part of all of this. It's wishing you luck with all the next steps.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Tom.